Maid is a limited series on Netflix inspired by Stephanie Land's bestselling memoir, Maid: Hard Work, Low Pay, and a Mother's Will to Survive. The series was released on October 1st, 2021, and has remained in the top 5 shows most viewed ever since in many countries. According to Netflix, the series is on its way to reach 67 million households in its first 4 weeks. The 10-episode limited series takes viewers on the personal, emotional journey of a young woman and mother dealing with domestic abuse. Maid is acclaimed for the awareness it brings to the lack of safety nets for abused women. For many viewers, this was the first time they learned about the existence of domestic abuse shelters. Although JFS does not offer housing, we act as a virtual shelter. We provide all the services that a shelter does without the shelter environment. These services are available to clients for no cost and can allow them the opportunity to make changes without having to derail their lives. Our family violence intervention clinicians watched Maid and are ready to answer your questions about the series and the abuse it portrays.
Hello, my name is Kathy Schiffer, and I'm an LCSW. I have been working in the field of mental health for about 30 years and worked with lots of individuals that have struggled with family violence.
Hello, my name is Alita Andrews. Thank you guys so much for coming today. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Texas and at JFS, and I have worked in the family violence field for about 5 years and for helping individuals find their safety.
Hi, I'm Pamela Vasquez. I'm also a licensed professional counselor. I work with all ages, and I work with families and individuals who are survivors of family violence for close to 10 years, and I've worked with various also family violence agencies.
So one of the first questions that we have is, what is the meaning? How is a social support system very important to someone who's struggling with family violence? Social support is essential for all of us. We are social beings, and it's the way we get affirmation, emotional support, financial support. So when an individual lacks that and doesn't have it, we have research has shown that they oftentimes are incredibly isolated and alone, very lonely. They're at high risk for depression, for substance abuse, and also cardiovascular disease. So social support is something that we really need in our lives.
Thank you, Kathy. The next question talks about in the film or in the series that Alex goes to a friend for support. And we wanted to kind of ask, what should you do if a friend comes to you for help? Without any spoilers, in the film, in the series, she does come and ask for someone for support, but the partner of that friend knows the person she's leaving, her former partner. And it was a little bit different than what it looks like. So if someone comes to you, number one, my answer leans towards what not to do versus what to do. So one of the things is, don't judge or criticize what someone may be experiencing, right? Just believe the person and what they're saying, believe your friend. Saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe that he would do that. That doesn't sound like him, right? Those statements can further isolate, like what Kathy was talking about, and lead to not reaching out for help in the future. Another important thing is to make sure that you know that you can be there as a support system, but that it's up to your friend to choose when she is ready to leave the relationship if applicable, right? So just be there as a support system. And don't try and offer advice, I guess, except for trying to find counseling or therapeutic advice and helping her get connected to resources. Another thing is to make sure that you provide support in a way without over promising things that you can't keep, right? Because you don't want to say, hey, you can come over anytime, whenever that's not really a promise you can fulfill. So that's a key line. Essentially, just believe your friend and be there for her. Considering the statistics that 1 in 4 men and 1 in 4 women have experienced some sort of violence in their lifetime within a relationship, chances are that you've encountered a friend or currently have a friend who's experienced this. So be supportive and non-judgmental.
So the next question, thank you, Alita. And the next question is, in what ways does financial control constitute abuse? So this can be very overt or this can be very subtle. And as you know, early on in a relationship, we do want to kind of look out for those indications. First, it can seem very loving as, oh, you don't have to work, or you don't have to go to school, or let's focus on our relationship. Or it can be more extreme as if the person, the non-abusive partner is bringing in income, the abusive partner can say, okay, well, I'll be in charge of the decisions and I need you to hand over the check to me, or I have control over our account. We don't need separate accounts. So those are kind of warning signs. It's really just based, like all the abuses, on power and control. So financially, that is an extreme form of power over the person, because in the long run, if you do want to leave the relationship and you don't have income, you don't have savings, it's that much harder. And then if we add to the equation children, that can be just as tough, because now we are dependent on our partner for basic needs. When in a relationship, how can you make a financial plan to make sure you're financially independent? And also to, talking about having those conversations, healthy conversations about money, and knowing your partner beforehand. How do we make decisions together? Are we comfortable having separate savings accounts, checkings accounts? Do we need to have a discussion before we spend over a certain amount? And then this will likely come up, trigger any flags, green or red, when you're having that conversation. And then if you're in an unhealthy relationship, having, to save gradually and slowly can be a little bit difficult, but that is something that our counselors can help you with as well.
The fourth question, what is emotional abuse? What are the signs of emotional abuse in a relationship? Emotional abuse can encompass numerous things. It's rather insidious because it can happen over a long period of time with just slights that you don't really know what's going on, but it can include verbal abuse, which is yelling and insults and swearing at you. It could be rejection of you, your thoughts, your ideas, your desires, your dreams, all of that being questioned by the individual. It can also be gaslighting, and gaslighting is a kind of a manipulation. If each one of us has a certain kind of reality, and my reality may be different than yours. But if you're in a relationship where someone's constantly questioning your reality and telling you that you're crazy or it's not real, that's a form of manipulation, and sometimes we call it gaslighting. Put downs, calling you names, insults, isolation, telling you can't go visit your friends or go to church, or they're trying to contain you in a specific place, like in the home. Financial abuse, as Pam's already talked about, she did a great job there. Bullying and intimidation, those are forms of abuse. And emotional abuse, I personally, as a therapist, believe it's probably more dangerous than some other forms of abuse, even physical abuse. Emotional just devastates an individual. And it's very difficult to recover if you don't have social support or the services available to you that you need to reach out to. So if you notice it happening in someone else's relationship, I think you want to reach out to them, in a private, safe place, not around their abuser, but, and maybe question or ask, how can you help? That this is not normal, that this is not what love looks like. So I think it's very helpful if you can be there for that person and offer a safe place for them to come to. In the Netflix series Maid, I think it's in the second episode, if I'm not mistaken, she is adamant that she's going to leave. And she goes back to the house, and he's doing everything he can to persuade her to stay. And he does it in a kind way. But when she leaves, he then resorts to gaslighting significantly. You don't have anyone. What else does he say? You don't have anyone. You are nothing. I let you hang out with my friends. I paid the bills. He's basically insinuating that she has no value. And it's hard to watch. The issue with her mother, where the mother, that's incredible emotional abuse when she accuses her of flirting with her boyfriend when there's no evidence in the film that she had. So it's the verbal abuse, it's the rejection, the father rejects her, put downs, it's all your fault. But if that's the kind of abuse that she's putting up with, judgments before they even know her, also in the social services.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kathy. And along with what she was saying, one of the next questions that we have is, why doesn't she just leave, right? This is a common phrase that we hear when discussing people who are experiencing an abusive relationship. And an important factor in that is, why is it not a viable option, right? It's like I was saying earlier, expressing concern without being judgmental, right? Saying that there are so many different reasons why someone stays with a partner who may be abusive, right? Like Pam was illustrating earlier about financial concerns, isolation, emotional abuse, not feeling like you can actually leave. Whenever you hear like what Kathy was saying over and over again for years, it's hard not to believe those statements, right, about you, that you can't, that it's difficult for you to leave, you're nothing without me, right? So I do think that in itself, why doesn't she just leave, is a victim blaming statement. Just focusing on the person who's experiencing abuse to leave rather than the person who is abusing to change their behavior, right? So, but additionally, I think this is a wonderful series because without any spoilers again, from the first episode to the last episode, it illustrates how many different complications and logistical things that she encounters before she's able to successfully leave the relationship, right? If you have a child, there's custody agreements. You can't leave the state if you are with someone if you have a child with a partner, right? You can't leave the state. And if you don't have any social support, like Kathy was saying, it's hard to plan where to go without financial support. If you have a child, there's daycare. And she says that in there too. She's like, how can I find a job if I don't have any access to daycare, right? So I think, again, it's that idea of expressing judgment. Why doesn't she just leave? Why does she keep going back to him? There's so many different things that you may not be aware of. And so number one, whenever I hear those statements, I always think, A, it's not that simple, and it's so much more complex, and B, why is the person, why are they experiencing abuse, right? I think that's the most important question. Why is that always the responsibility placed on the person who's experiencing abuse rather than the person who's utilizing abusive tactics? So one of the things that JFS can provide when someone is ready to leave or considering leaving a relationship, like Pam was saying, what's really important is it's such a critical and difficult time for someone leaving a relationship, right? The most dangerous time for someone is when they are leaving. So preparation is essential. And sometimes that can't happen, right? In the show, Alex had to leave in the middle of the night because she felt unsafe, right? Without much of documents or preparation. With JFS, we can be able to help you figure out what your best next steps are and things to consider if you are ready to leave a relationship. Or if you're even considering, right, if you're in the first stages of saying, hey, I don't know if this is right. We can, as therapists, we can be there to help bring other things into consideration that may not be in your immediate point of view. So again, it just goes back to that. Why doesn't she just leave? It's not that simple. And I think that this show really beautifully demonstrates that.
Thanks, Alita. And definitely that's important to take into consideration when a person, a survivor, makes the decision to reach out for help, it's not an easy decision. It's very high stress. Again, all those factors, in mind, especially in the series, Alex, having to kind of a last recourse. But if she were to call to JFS, we would understand that. And really, we want to establish safety and grounding because it's a high stress situation. And every person can be, in different stages of leaving a relationship, considering, wanting to leave a relationship, or people can be early on and saying, I don't know if this is a healthy relationship. So we want to assess for where they're at. But in Alex's case, she has her daughter and this is an emergency situation. JFS, if available, we're able to help with a hotel voucher or connect them to a shelter, cared for domestic violence survivors. And also taking into consideration, sometimes there is a wait. A lot of times when we reach out to shelters, they are at capacity or full. So JFS can help with, having them just a good night's rest for a few nights, if possible. So we can kind of feel safe, gather our thoughts. Can we really, if they're in distress, we can also connect them with a counselor just to help them identify what they're needing in that moment, because it's an extremely scary situation. Asking for help is, it's being really vulnerable, and there's a lot of shame that we talked about related to this is happening. And even survivors are not ready to recognize, just like Alex, she felt like, well, this isn't a big deal and I don't want to take someone's spot who's in real danger. So even understanding that they are processing so much. So just compassion, patience, and really, trying to understand what their needs are.
I think what I would say to people that are in family violence, domestic violence, I think most importantly is you're not alone. And please reach out. Please find a way to access services because I think we can help. And I think that safety is huge for yourself and for your children. So JFS welcomes you.